Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 99 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel 666 times in the head. Rowald.
Roses are red, violets are blue. I'm schizophrenic, and so am I.
Very nice. I had to use your intro first because I was afraid someone would take it. Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew. You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone. Zumwalt.
Well, hi, everybody. What fucking shit? Bolt lick fart nipple. And so, how's everybody doing?
Very nice.
Good, good.
Third, writer, actor, and director, Kyle. Lips and assholes, fine.
Wow, you totally stole it. I was just going to say, I finally joined Twitter. You can at me at lips and assholes.
Yours and Gabe's were the toss-up on who was going to steal it. So,
hey, Gabe, I don't know if anybody else is doing this, but I can see your desktop.
Yeah, it's going
yes,
crazy.
It's going nuts. I know. I tried.
Whoa! Are you in some sort of a time portal?
I know. I tried to mute myself, and I hung up, and then I joined the call, and now it's doing this. I don't know how to make it stop.
Oh my God! Why would you want to?
I know, look at the.
I feel like I've been dosed with acid.
Oh my God!
You are
it's
entering
backwards
another dimension.
I don't know what to do.
It's usually $50 a gram to get this. This is great.
Jesus Christ!
You call me, get it for free.
Okay. Oh, I put it on full screen. Oh my God!
I honestly don't know what to do.
Oh, what's it doing now? What's it doing now?
Do you want me
It's
to
like
leave
a visualizer for Winamp. Anybody remember?
I remember Winamp.
Having a visualizer up.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
While I'm listening to Limp Bizkit.
I was thinking like a really bad Disney sci-fi movie from like the 80s.
Oh, that sounds
We're
right.
going through a time tunnel.
This is definitely a hallway in Flight of the Navigator. That's
Oh.
what your desktop looks like. Jesus Christ, Gabe.
All right. We're still doing
and then
intros.
when I talk, my icon glows and then it goes. Woo!
I don't
All
know
right.
what to do.
There it goes.
Quit
This
looking
is
at
so
it.
strange.
Can I vote for this?
Yes. Yeah.
Gabe, this is the best movie of the night.
I know. Are you recording video, Mike?
No, I'm
Look
not.
at that. Oh.
Holy shit.
It is nuts.
Oh,
This is trippy.
We're falling. I'm falling.
We're melting.
Yeah, it keeps changing. It's like we have our visualizer on random and it keeps switching every time. My Limp
I like
Bizkit
it when I
CD goes to the next track.
When I talk, look at me pulse.
Oh.
All right.
Sorry. It's totally my fault.
Get a room, fun boys.
Thanks.
God, just
Thanks,
prop
Gabe.
them.
I literally don't know how to make it stop.
Oh, God. Oh, quit shaking it. You're making it worse.
Holy cow!
What do, you want me to hang up and try again?
We're going to have
You
to
can
start this
stop
whole thing
presenting.
over.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, this is not
genius.
distracting at all.
Gabe's hallucinogenic drugs have worn off. And finally, fourth, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom. There are two types of people in this world: those who like Neil Diamond and those who don't. Haggis.
I'm on the fence. I don't know.
Hi, boys. How are you?
Fantastic.
Now that we've all come down from our acid trip that Gabe has given us.
Whoop whoop.
Will that be out of context? Will people not understand what happened?
Gabe shared his desktop with us on Skype, and then joined the call again, and all hell broke loose. So,
Yes, it was quite psychedelic.
yeah, it was pretty psychedelic.
Awesome.
Hence the great intro that we just went through. Without further ado, let's poke the muggy, find out what we're talking about.
Ladies and gentlemen, self-centered salesmen and egotistical therapists, welcome to the main event. Tonight, two family vacations are turned upside down when unwanted visitors arrive. Who will ride the pontoon boat into the sunset, and who will be picking splinters from their ass? In the first corner, from 1988, written by John Hughes and directed by Howard Deutsch, starring Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, and Annette Bening, The Great Outdoors! In the second corner, from 1991, written by Alvin Sargent and Laura Ziskin, directed by Frank Oz, starring Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, and Julie Haggerty. What about Bob?
I've seen both of these movies. I don't know how many times. I have fond memories of one of them, and yeah, it was. I'll share it at the end of during the overall. I just have fond memories of it. So let's go ahead and move on to our first round, which is writing.
My feeling when I was watching these is that I didn't feel like either of them was like particularly strong from a writing standpoint. I kind of felt that The Great Outdoors, it seemed like a bunch of like funny vignettes that were kind of just loosely tied together. I felt like maybe John Hughes, kind of like took experiences or something that he had maybe as a child, doing these kind of trips with his family, and just kind of like took a bunch of those funny things and just kind of threw them together. I mean, I guess there was kind of the whole arc of the bear, but otherwise it was just kind of random stuff, and it was kind of like a family film, but also kind of a young romance kind of film, and also, I don't know, it just felt kind of disjointed to me, and I felt like the characters and the story were a little bit more straightforward and conscious in What About Bob? I don't know. Have you guys heard anything about the writing of Great Outdoors? Do we know how it came about?
There is nothing about that in the writing, which I was kind of thinking the same thing while watching it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like John Hughes grabbed inspiration from going on trips with his family or being a kid or anything like that. Nothing.
Yeah, that's really what it felt like to me.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, Gabe. It feels more like a string of funny situations. It is kind of a slice of life comedy with just lots of bits and gags. A lot of them are really funny. They're still funny to me all these years later. This is a movie Great Outdoors is a movie I've seen probably 50 times or more. Just a movie I absolutely loved, especially as a child. It does suffer from a really weak third act, where inexplicably two characters who've done nothing the entire movie climb into a dynamite mine. And that's just like they drew that out of a hat, like dynamite mine. Yeah, okay, cool. We're gonna do that at the end.
Wait. Dynamite? Where they mine dynamite?
Hold on, mica mine that has dynamite in it. I just realized my error. Mining dynamite would be incredibly dangerous.
It would be.
As you would only know when you hit dynamite when you blew the fuck out of everybody around you.
What?
Interesting. Like if you were drilling down to find, a raw vein of dynamite. Assuming
Keep
dynamite's
going.
a mineral in the way I was using it. Oh, this is going well. Don't stop me now. Anyways, it has some serious third act problems, and the resolution is not very strong. It's more of a gag movie. It does suffer in those times when it's young love, but that's so typical of late 80s, early 90s movies that I don't know. It's
and even that doesn't resolve all that well to me.
No, not really. And maybe that's intentionally because it is a vacation romance. It doesn't have an ending.
Yeah, and that those kinds of things have happened to all of us, probably. Well, yeah. I mean, I ended up in a dynamite mine. I don't know about you guys.
Oh,
I've actually made out in a dynamite mine with my vacation romance.
well, see,
Was
that's what
also
the
your
teenagers do.
brother-in-law. Oh no, wait.
Oh, they say the kids yell down the holes, but you don't want to know what the teenagers do. So that's what they do. They go down there and they're doing hanky panky with the dynamites.
Right.
What about Bob is a much more structured linear story that
Yeah.
tells a story from beginning to end and feels like it fits in more places. But I don't think it's particularly brilliant or anything like that, but it's a well-written movie. They both suffer from, Great Outdoors suffers from a grease-like problem, and then there is a break from reality at a certain point where all of a sudden the raccoons can talk and we can understand them, which is funny, right? It's funny, but there is this moment you're like, nothing else in this movie is like this.
That's true.
where
That's true.
there are speaking animals we can understand.
You kind of get the impression that John Hughes might have been like looking at Gabe's screen when he got to that part. Talking raccoons, man.
Yeah.
Talking
Maybe.
raccoons.
Whoa, that's crazy.
It's not as breaking as the flying car in Greece, but it's in there as like, that's kind of weird. It's funny. You just take it at face value when you're younger, but it is strange. It doesn't fit with the rest of the movie.
It is a pop culture icon though, because they even made a Geico commercial later about those talking raccoons.
The music is really memorable from those scenes too. The music, the movie does music really well to punctuate
Yeah.
scenes and things like that. Yeah,
Is it like
and I
Danny
still
Elfman
love
or
that.
something?
I'm not sure who did the soundtrack, but Yakety Sax, the opening to that movie,
Yes.
the
Yes.
opening, I
It
will
was
always
actually-
have stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Great Outdoors. It was Thomas Newman.
Oh,
So, like the guy
yeah,
that did-
you're right.
American Beauty and 6 Feet Under. I mean, he's done some. Well, he did Wally. I mean,
Yeah.
so this.
Yeah, I remembered a familiar name during the credits at the beginning. I remember seeing a familiar name.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
mean, he's
John
pretty.
Candy.
He's
Dan
one of my
Aykroyd.
favorite composers now. When I saw his name at the beginning, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
That's
We're
always
watching
kind of
the
weird.
beginning of a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do Skyfall. It's gonna be great.
Right. Yeah, I also felt like in The Great Outdoors that there were some characters. Well, I didn't feel like the character development was all that deep, and maybe it didn't need to have these vignettes. But I just felt like, they had the lightning guy,
Reg.
yeah.
With the white stripe.
And he's in it. He's in it for that scene where he stutters, which is kind of like okay, we're putting him in there for this joke, for the 666, joke, and then they show him again when he gets struck by lightning, but the only point of that was to indicate there's a storm coming,
Yeah.
and there was
It's
nothing
called
else.
a callback. It's a callback, Gabe.
Oh, brilliant! Just
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. I
Yeah.
don't know
What they did
to say.
was they found
If
a
it's
handful
named,
of
it's gotta be.
comedians.
It's got to be intentional.
Yeah.
I just felt like, well, that was kind of a wasted character. They could have done something more interesting with him. You know, I don't know. I just didn't. I just didn't feel like the character. I think the best developed character in that movie was the bear. For me, because it's got this whole backstory about how it became bald, and then it becomes, it goes through this whole new, scenario where it gets gets its ass blasted with a shotgun and becomes bald.
Whoa.
Well, and they even bring it up at the end.
Yeah.
The talking squirrels in
post-credit
I don't
scene?
know. Is that one of the first post-credit scenes?
That might be one of the first post-credit scenes.
Gotta be.
I did not know there was a post-credit screen. I've always turned it off during the credits.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the squirrels. The raccoons.
Raccoons. You got to watch it all at the end.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah, you need to approach John Hughes movies the same way you approach Marvel movies, I think.
Right. Agreed.
Right. He's setting up the sequel in the end.
I would say that probably one of the most memorable scenes from that is when he does the old 76er, right?
96er.
96er.
Yeah.
Because and I think the part of that really stuck out even as a kid was when the guy brings out the steak, he has a butcher's apron on and it's like covered with blood.
Yes.
Like he just slaughtered a cow. Like I was like, wow, that was okay. So
I think one of my favorite scenes, which was also just a really short vignette, was the Leeches.
Oh,
the Leeches are pretty funny.
Yeah, because that was one of the few times when I kind of actually laughed out loud. Like I had a chuckle when they woke up and they were all covered with leeches. It was kind of telegraphed. You could kind of see it coming. But it was still, I don't know, that was one of the scenes that I thought was actually kind of funny. But others, I just didn't, I don't know. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't an expertly crafted film in my mind.
I'll tell you the scene that I mostly related to. Can anybody guess the scene I mostly related to? Is when John Candy orders the chili dogs, and he's like, I'll have 4 chili dogs and 2 hot dogs. And I was like, oh, that's me.
And the kid
Buck's like, that's 6 hot
Dad.
dogs, Dad.
Yeah.
They're for everybody, and I'm hungry. And I was like, oh, John Candy's my spirit animal.
Well, I guess from my perspective, one of the things I thought was interesting specifically with the writing was that John Candy's character was kind of the somewhat normal family. We're out to have vacation, and Dan Aykroyd was the weirdo of the group.
Yeah, they kind of flipped it, didn't they?
Yeah, and I mean, because normally you see John Candy being the goofy, over the top, or the corny weirdo, or whatever, and I thought that was really interesting to see. And I mean, John Candy's done a lot of movies, and just to see that, I thought that was kind of interesting. And that was a perspective I took away later, obviously, in life, to see that. But I thought that was really interesting that they chose to make the funny man not funny, but funny in the situations, but not like corny funny like he normally plays. So
right, because you usually have the straight guy in the foil, and John Candy typically plays the foil. He's the guy that comes in and messes up the story. That disturbs everything. And I was watching it, and I got 10 minutes into it, and I was like, oh shit, I think John Candy's the straight guy in this. And it was it kind of took me by surprise. But then I started thinking, I was like, I can't believe that I'm so programmed into how these characters are supposed to play their roles and how formulaic this movie was, that I was automatically putting actors into what I expect them to do. Right. John Candy's not going to do what the guy normally does. And I'm like, that's so messed up that I have that kind of expectation going into movies.
Yeah.
Right.
And it fits so perfectly. I was kind of like, oh, John Hughes, I'm disappointed.
Okay, speaking of kind of crazy, what did you guys think of Bill Murray's character in What About Bob? There were parts where I thought he could potentially be charming, but there are other times where the things he was doing were truly psychopathic and were a little bit disturbing to me. Like, pretending to commit suicide and pretending to be a detective and stalking this family. If maybe he had come about that information a little more innocently and not so in such a disturbingly calculated fashion, it might not have disturbed me as much. But I had a hard time. I was waiting for him to just snap and murder the whole family.
That would have been an interesting
movie.
Yeah,
that's the setup though, right?
That is the setup.
Because they got
I know, but
switch,
I think they could have set
places.
it up. And maybe it's just a different time.
It is a different time, Gabe. I thought the same thing. I'm like, man, this is like one plot point away from turning into a horror film, right?
Here's Bob.
Yeah. His character, the way, I think Bill Murray is likable enough that he can kind of allay your fears of that. But I felt at times like, he's a little bit more creepy than I want him to be for kind of a main lovable character. And again, it may have been, maybe that wasn't so creepy back in 91 or whenever that was. But like nowadays, I'm like that is a, that's
some
a
of the
mass
things
shooting waiting to happen.
Some of the things he does are definitely beyond the pale of like, oh, he's just being wacky and he's desperate for his, affection and connection, and he needs his doctor. There are some things like faking his suicide, breaking in and lying to a woman to get a personal address, standing in the middle of the town and yelling his doctor's name.
Yeah.
There are some things he does that are definitely way past like, oh, what a lovable goof. I actually think the subtext of this movie, when I watch it, and I don't know how on I am about it, is one of like almost gaslighting, where the only person who really sees Bob for being crazy and manipulative and like this psychopath is Richard Dreyfuss, and everybody else is telling him, you're crazy. Bob's nice. He's fun.
Yes.
And it ends up driving Richard Dreyfuss crazy because everybody else in the world is gaslighting him.
Right. Yes, it's true.
But I mean, it also says something about like first impressions. Like Richard Dreyfuss's first impression of him obviously is that, Bill Murray's mentally ill, but the family's first impression of him was like, oh, he actually seems quite normal. So it's funny how they carry those perceptions with them through their judgment of that character is colored by how they first, receive that person.
Mm-hmm.
But even the mental institution, when he goes there, he's totally normal sitting in the cafeteria talking to all the orderlies and just kind of hanging out, and everyone's like, he's just really funny and he's just kind of misunderstood and a quirky little guy, and we like him, and he's telling jokes, and
I thought that was like a break in that character though.
I thought that made him look like a brilliant psychopath, like a Ted Bundy.
Yes.
He
Right,
flipped the entire asylum to think he's totally normal.
See, I took the whole
had
movie as he is actually schizophrenic, because of the pieces he goes throughout the movie. If he can be perfectly charming, and then he drives his psychiatrist crazy, like he is schizophrenic. Like that is the definition of schizophrenic. And all the manipulative things that he did to get to his doctor, and then all of the crazy stuff that he doesn't understand, and then turns around and he can be the most lovable guy that you're like, hey, why don't you come over for dinner? You're awesome. And then, like you said, potentially could murder you in your sleep. But I think the whole movie was a complete direction of the fact that he is actually schizophrenic, 100%. Like it's a closed case.
I disagree with. I don't know. Maybe I'm watching it through the lens of when I first saw it. Way back 91?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it came out in 91.
But I think he's just playing someone that is, number one, lonely, and number two, a hypochondriac. Right? Like I totally think throughout the whole film, he is just a hypochondriac. He doesn't really, everything that he is afraid of, he's made like this. Okay, this is going to sound really weird, but he's made in his own mind. Like the whole touching the doorknobs, the whole going outside, agoraphobia and everything. He's done himself. And I think it was from the divorce, right? So he just kind of goes a little stir crazy and starts thinking up all this stuff. And by the end of it, he's cured. He's fine. He realizes he can live his life. I don't see it as a negative, but I do agree that, I mean, this script, if you put in one more plot point where he goes full Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger, I mean, you could do that very easily. But I also think that's us living in the times that we live in now, where we have seen so many of those movies, and we have unfortunately seen real life come into play.
I think it's funny that I feel tainted a little bit because we did Harvey 2 months ago, and I was watching this like, oh, we could have put this up against Harvey pretty well because
I had the same thought, Tom.
There's some similarities too about like really who's crazy and he's actually really charming and that whole kind of thing.
Yeah, but the difference being that the way Harvey was, he was actually kind of charming and seemed harmless. Like he's not faking suicides, and he's not, pretending to be someone else to get information and those
trying
kinds
to take
of things.
over someone else's family and their life.
Right.
It's like this weird body snatching thing where he ends up living at the house, and it's like, oh, this is just getting dark.
But I also think there is one line in there where he goes, after he has his breakdown at his party, he says, "I'll be daddy now. I'll play daddy now," or something like that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I maybe didn't catch that.
And when I say schizophrenic, I don't mean that in a negative way. I guess looking at it from a perspective of today, it shows very classic behavior of what you would consider. Yeah. And I guess maybe that's how I saw it now. I mean, if you're comparing this to when I first saw What About Bob, everything I saw was, this is a goofy, crazy guy, and I relate to him. Like, that's me.
Yeah, and I think the character was intended to be harmless and charming. Yeah. But there were certain things that he did that I felt like were like, oh, that's creepy. That is on the verge of actually being psychopathic.
But is that a perspective of the lens today?
Very likely, yeah.
Yes.
Maybe, yeah. I think it didn't seem as nefarious.
Right.
Right.
20 years ago.
We had blue stars in our windows asking kids to come over. Yeah, it wasn't that nefarious.
I think that one of the parts I love about What About Bob is that the whole time I'm watching it, and I've seen it a dozen times, but every time I'm watching it, I keep asking myself, is like Bob's progress through the movie is a result of Richard Dreyfuss's work with him. It was very brief, but he's obviously making some changes and he's getting better. So like Richard Dreyfuss kind of has that whole, being destroyed by his own monster thing happening where, maybe if Richard Dreyfuss wasn't as good, Bob wouldn't have clung to him so much. But then we see that he had done it with other doctors as well. But it's
like, he drove another doctor out of
That's great. I don't want to interrupt, but yes, I love that. Just that one little like free, and then
so I just that's the thing I always wonder about is like is this just is this the victim of his own success?
And was it actually Dr. Marvin, or was it the fact that he found kind of like where Mike was going with, he finally had he was in a family setting. He was around people that actually wanted to socialize, that enjoyed being around him, that actually helped him. And it was less Dr. Marvin and more the family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt like they were all, the family, was all being kind of like therapeutic with each other.
Yes.
Because they were sharing their kind of like, their concerns and their all of their intimate secrets with each other. And so, yeah, I felt like it was, I don't know, in the end, it was more the family that reformed him.
Because even there's the scene where the Tourette's thing happens in the bedroom, and he says, Dr. Marvin makes the comment somewhere along the lines of, we had a nice tight house, and now it's become a psycho ward. And his wife says to him, they're just kids being kids.
Yes.
And I see that as perhaps Dr. Marvin was so uptight and not allowing of some of the goofiness that Bob brought into the house, that's actually what drove him crazy. Like, he was, maybe more military, or stereotypical military. It seemed like he was written to be this, everything is very specific, it's scheduled, everything is neat and tidy, we don't goof off. It's a very strict household, and Bob broke that. And I believe that that's part of the writing to get him to go crazy, that it wasn't necessarily just Bob being weird. Because, he did try to blow him up. Out of all of this, the doctor did try to kill Bob.
Yes.
And maybe that's the ironicity, who was actually crazy? Was it actually Bob or Dr. Marvin?
Right. Well, but I want to point out too, let's go back to that family theory real quick. His kids' names are Anna and Sigmund, and they're, obviously named after Sigmund Freud and his daughter, Anna Freud.
Yeah.
So maybe that is where they were going, that the family did help him more than Leo could, right? Like, Leo was very self-centered. One of my favorite scenes in the whole thing is when he's looking for his book and he acts like he's looking for it, and there's a whole row.
There's like 20 of them.
Like, I literally had tears in my eyes watching this again when that happened, because I always forget about it. It's just brilliant. But I think that will go with the acting. But yeah, maybe the family theory has traction.
Yeah, how many scenes are there where they're like, sharing their deepest, darkest secrets with each other? The
puppets are weird.
Yeah, but that was also kind of a statement on Dr. Marvin's character.
Yeah,
that even he can't relate on a personal level with his own daughter. And he uses the pretense of these puppets to talk to her.
Right.
Which in and of itself is kind of crazy.
Right. Because like he had puppets for his whole family, and so you would assume that he did this with everyone. And I know growing up that would be really weird.
Keep sailing, Bob.
I'm sailing.
All right. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote, boys. We'll start off with Gabe.
Yeah, I feel like the writing in What About Bob was much more concise. So I'm going to go with What About Bob.
All right. Tom?
Bob.
Kyle?
Even though they wrote a dark, tight thriller about someone coming in and replacing you as the head of a household, a psychotic, narcissistic, dangerous individual, I'm going to say that Great Outdoors had much better crafted vignettes, comedy skits, and it's much more memorable film. So I'm going to go with Great Outdoors.
All right. And Andrew?
Well, minus all of the deepness that we've gone into writing and potentially pulled out things that the writers never intended and really thought, this is just a funny ass comedy with two really great actors, I'm going with What About Bob?
All right. What About Bob is the debut writing credit of producer Laura Ziskin, who was co-credited for the movie's story as well. She also helped produce it. The Great Outdoors was one of two 1988 cinema movies produced screenplays of John Hughes, which debuted that year. Do you guys want to take a guess at what the other one was?
101 Dalmatians.
No.
Breakfast Club.
88?
No. Yeah, 88.
Christmas Vacation.
No.
Hold on.
Nope, I don't know then.
Hold on.
She's having a baby.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
It comes back to Kevin Bacon again. God
It
damn
does.
Always.
Always.
that fucking guy.
All right, let's move on to our second round. Acting.
So this is kind of continuing the trend of I feel like one of these movies is superior in just about every category because it's just better, and I feel like the acting and What About Bob is much better than Great Outdoors, and I'm hesitant because people are just like, comedy is hard. Comedy is really, really hard. And John Candy and Dan Aykroyd are two of the best. But maybe it's because Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray had better material to work with based on our last category. But so in my mind, I decided if you flipped these two, if you put John Candy and Dan Aykroyd in What About Bob, and you put the other two actors in Great Outdoors, I feel like Great Outdoors might be the better movie. I feel like What About Bob would kind of slide into more of a slapsticky type a movie, and so then I'm just kind of left with it. I think Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss do the better job. And for 42 years I've had a crush on Julie Haggerty. Shit, that might have something to do with it because I think she's absolutely hilarious, and I can never get enough of her, even though but she's been absolutely wonderful since Airplane, and she doesn't do a lot, but every time she's just fantastic. So, and then lastly, I think the kids in What About Bob come through a lot better than the ones in Great Outdoors. The Great Outdoor characters seem kind of flat and, a little bit like stereotype and playing for laughs, that kind of thing. But I think there's a lot more depth, obviously, to Siggy and Anna in What About Bob. So obviously I'm leaning very much towards What About Bob. Acting-wise, there's not a whole lot going on outside, the core people in the movies. They don't usually, sometimes we talk a lot about the supporting cast and the tertiary players and that kind of thing, and there really isn't a whole lot of that. These are really a tight cast, a small cast. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Before we get into anything big, I do want to say, if we're going to switch those actors around, I want to see John Candy tied to a mast of a sailboat. Because that shit would be funny as hell.
Just real quick, I want to throw in there, watching The Great Outdoors, I had an idea, what if they made this back in the 50s and it was Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, right? Like I could totally see Dean Martin playing John Candy's role and Jerry Lewis playing Dan Aykroyd's role. And essentially everything would be the same.
It's kind of surprising the movie hasn't been remade.
Exactly.
I think it
seems like it lends itself.
I thought I just saw a thing where
I thought they're making a TV
maybe
show.
I was misled, but they might be remaking it with Kevin.
I thought they were doing a TV show.
See, and that's the name that came to my mind too. Was that
Kevin
someone
Hart
would try to do a Kevin Hart movie based on this? Yeah, I don't know why. That's just that name.
Yeah, that seems to
Hart.
be a thing.
Yep.
If the internet can be believed,
Kevin
that
Hart
seems to be a thing happening.
Can we leave alone some 80s and 90s movies? It's not like, I don't know, what's the franchise rights for this movie? I mean, you banking on a lot of 19 to 39-year-old people remembering Great Outdoors?
No, I've come to the conclusion when people do this, I mean, movies are expensive. And if you can get any kind of name recognition in there at all, that is going to help, do what a poster normally would do, I think, obviously they're going to jump on it, And
TV, if you can buy in for, at least one season, you've just, paid people, you've had the chance, you may or may not get picked up, but hey, you got one season out there. You've made money regardless, is my point.
Yeah.
As long as idiots go see it,
Which on TV and Hulu's and Netflix and stuff, it's much easier to suck those people in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say I think your idea of thinking what these movies would be with the cast switch is an interesting one, and works really well I think for comedies, especially in this time era where there are so many memorable comedic actors that we still know. Watching Great Outdoors again made me really sad that John Candy's gone, because I would love to see old John Candy. I just would love to see what he would continue to do, because he's one of my favorite performers to watch. And I think he's great in this movie. And Dan Aykroyd's really good in this movie too. I mean, overacting a little bit, but they're caricatures. But the supporting cast is really weak in the kid department. And it just reminded me of how lucky we are now to get some of the kid actors we get, because in the 80s and 90s, it was an absolute crapshoot. You had no idea what kind of performance you were going to get out of those, side characters. I did like the Reg character. I know he's a one-note character. My favorite character in Great Outdoors is the owner, who shows them the cabin and who brings them into the lodge and talks to him about the bear dump. I just love that guy.
Robert Kosky.
There you go. I think he's probably the funniest character in the movie. And the scene where the old man is dead in the lodge is such a memorable scene to me. All these years later, still so funny. But what about Bob? I mean, Bill Murray is really good in What About Bob? And we've seen throughout the years that he's actually got legit acting chops. I thought Richard Dreyfuss was really good as a straight man.
Yeah.
His attempts at the more comedic things, I felt a little weaker when he was quote unquote going crazy. All he really was doing was blinking his eyes a bit and then looking like he wasn't there. But Bill Murray did a great job. It was a really interesting character. And I think the supporting cast in that movie was better. Yes, but I'd love to see some old John Candy. That'd be great. Just old, bitter, funny John Candy. That'd be really good.
Agreed.
Well, and one of my theories is that great comedic actors are actually great dramatic actors as well. I feel like there's this kind of continuum, and if you can be a great dramatic actor, you can, and maybe you guys can find examples that would disprove this, but if you're great at drama, you can be really good at comedy as well. And if you're good at comedy, you've already got the drama thing down.
See, and I think a good comedic actor can be a good dramatic actor. I don't think it's the other way around, because I feel like to be a good dramatic actor, you have to have like a connection to truth. But to be a good comedic actor, you have to have connected to truth, but also timing. And I'm sorry, but some dramatic actors have horrible timing, and editors are constantly failing them.
Perhaps that's a better way to say it. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Because I think there are certain comedic actors who are just way over the top. Somebody like, and I think we've talked about this before, with like somebody like Jim Carrey or somebody like that. They can. Bill Murray is one of those people that I think he's a good comedic actor, but he's actually a really great dramatic actor. Robin Williams is fantastic. He was crazy over the top with his comedy, but he was so good and so heartfelt and so believable in his dramatic roles. And it would have been really interesting to see how John Candy matured into that. I would have liked to seen John Candy in something a little more mature, a little more dramatic, because I have this feeling that he could have really pulled it off.
Well, I would definitely say that
I really do.
I have an actor. So you mentioned one, Jim Carrey. He can play some very serious roles and does a phenomenal job. If you've ever seen The Majestic, Jim Carrey is phenomenal in. And there's also, of course, the Truman Show and such. Bruce Almighty, he kind of does both. But I can also say that then you have people like Adam Sandler, who they have some pretty good funny movies, and then they have some really bad funny movies, and he can't act normal to save his life.
Yeah, I haven't yet seen Punch Drunk Love. Can't say it.
Oh.
So I don't know. He may have pulled it off in that. It sounded like he was pretty good in that. Have you guys seen it?
He is good in it.
Yeah, he's really good.
But is that like a one-time thing? You know.
I would say the closest dramatic that Adam Sandler we could pull that out would be 50 First Dates, because he actually plays somewhat of a serious role and some goofy at the same time, but nothing compared to like your example of like Robin Williams, for instance, because 1 hour photo, he's creepy as hell.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of touch base a little bit on The Great Outdoors. I think Kyle, you're the one that said it kind of felt there was some really funny, like it's almost sketchy. Like there are moments, and then we go to the next sketch, and then we kind of go, and I think it's really interesting to see Dan Aykroyd and John Candy be able to pull that off in that kind of sketchy way. I don't mean sketchy as in like weird, but like it's a sketch, and then we move to the next scene, and that's a sketch, and then we move to the next scene, and they do a really good job, I think, of being able to make those scenes funny and interesting, but it leads to not a continual story of like, again, we talk about all these moments in The Great Outdoors, and I remember scenes with those actors and what they did and lines that they said and the funny moments. But like in What About Bob, I remember the whole movie. I know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And you have this story that's evolving. And I don't know if that pertains directly to the actors being able to pull off those moments. So it's kind of a plus for both, I guess, because they're different movies. But I'm not sure you could pull off with switching them that you would get a Richard Dreyfuss being able to do kind of those sketch moments where it would be funny and or memorable. I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong with that, but it seems like that they picked two really good actors that are able to pull off those hits, those moments, instead of having to drive out this whole long story to continue on.
Was it on here that this is the only movie this isn't the only movie Dan Aykroyd and John Candy been in movies together. So they kind of had, they
were in Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble.
Stripes.
1941. Dan Aykroyd was not in Stripes.
No.
Dan Aykroyd was not in Stripes?
Correct.
Yep.
You're thinking
Bill Murray.
You're thinking of 1941.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Okay.
Bill Murray and John Candy were in Stripes, right?
Okay. But, they came from that,
Blues Brothers.
Great White North. What's the comedic group up there?
SCTV.
SCTV.
Oh,
They both come from SCTV. So I mean, they've kind of have a good history together anyway. So, yeah, I think it's funny. I'm gonna watch Great Outdoors from now on and just see it as a series of Saturday Night Live sketches. So,
yeah, I just know what it's like.
Yeah.
And that is what it feels like a bit. Yeah. And some fun ones where they come in dressed, with like wastebaskets over their heads to, combat the the bat. Like there's a lot of good sketches, but it just seemed kind of like stitched together, just barely, with a kind of a storyline.
I think that's why the third act feels so weird too. Is like we don't know how to end this because there hasn't been much story progression.
Which I got to say is so unlike John Hughes. Like this is the most un-John Hughes movie that I've seen, aside from the fact that people mention Chicago. Just like what it doesn't really come across. John Hughes does a really good job of taking these funny moments, like he did in Home Alone and Vacation, and stringing them together to tell a coherent story. As one thing goes to the next, and this one just didn't seem to have it. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I just want to throw in there real quick that I have always, and I will continue to always have a crush on Lucy Deakins, the girl who plays Cammy. I fell in love with her in The Boy Who Could Fly, and then The Great Outdoors.
Yes, The Boy Who Could Fly.
Yes.
That's it. Oh, I knew her from somewhere.
Yes.
Oh,
I have had it since I was a kid. I've always had a crush on her, and yeah. It's great.
So what, it looked like, I did a little research beforehand, and it looked like she really didn't continue acting. Did she appear in much after?
It seems like...
No, this was like...
Sorry, Tom, go ahead.
I was going to say, most of the kids seemed like they did this movie and then they were like, fuck this.
Well, she was She was on Law and Order from 93 to 2002.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That long?
Or actually, no. Not 93 to 2000.
Oh, liar.
She was in an episode in 93 and an episode in
And an
2002.
Not only does Mike have a crush on her,
So
he's
not
also her agent.
Yes.
So not 160 episodes of procedural crime drama.
Right.
Two episodes.
I mean, to be honest, it sounds like she's been married to someone since 99. They have children, and it seems like she's just like, you know what? That was in the past, right? She was on As the World Turns, Lily Walsh. She was in 84.
Well,
Hey, I've already said that, you know what? If you make it to Law and Order or Law and Order SVU, you've hit your peak of your career and you're good.
It's funny that you bring that up because Catherine Irby, who plays the daughter in What About Bob, was on, let's see, where is it?
He's definitely in a Law and Order.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Law and Order Criminal Intent from 2001 to 2011.
See?
Was it 2 episodes or how many episodes?
That's what I'm looking for.
She was also Gordon Bombay's love interest in Mighty Ducks 2.
Yes.
Yeah. Because normally you get to be like the person who something happened to, or you're one of those people, and then that's it. You're the guest star, and when you're the guest star, that's you've made your career.
And by the way, she was 26 playing a teenager.
Yes,
she was 10 years. She was like 10 years younger than Julie Haggerty.
I love Hollywood.
Well, my curiosity was piqued because her last name was Deakins, and I thought, well, is she in some way related to Roger Deakins, the cinematographer? And then it says
my girlfriend alone, Gabe.
Yeah, but it says father. The trivia on IMDb says father Roger is a retired NYU professor of Shakespeare. So I think that's a different Roger Deakins.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
I'm guessing so.
But coincidental nonetheless.
The kid who played Siggy grew up to be like a lawyer and is in like a high-ranking law position.
Yeah,
it's like a law professor.
Yeah, he was also oh my God, he played the kid. That's right, he played the kid in Dick Tracy.
And Hook.
And he was Jack and Hook.
Wow. That's right.
So,
he was in Can't Hardly Wait.
So he just rises through the ranks like, yeah, I know Warren Beatty and Steven Spielberg. What's up? We're making you a partner.
Yes.
They're
hoping they'll make a movie about the lawyers. Some high-profile case.
I kept watching. I'm like, he reminds me. And yeah, I saw Dick Tracy a lot when I was a kid. I really liked it. But
Hook with Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman, he really hit it.
Yeah. And Spielberg, of course.
And Spielberg and Julia Roberts. Boy.
All right. Let's go ahead and put it to a vote, fellas. Tom.
Dick Tracy. Oh,
I'll put that down.
I've been waiting to say Dick Tracy for 99 episodes.
99
Oh,
years.
God.
When are we doing Dick Tracy?
It's on the list. So what about Bob?
Yeah, what about Bob?
Kyle?
Wait, no, let's see. If there's a tie at the end, can Dick Tracy be the reason we have a tie?
Yes. Dick Tracy will win if we have a tie.
That would be the schizophrenic in us.
As much as I love the performances in The Great Outdoors, they do suffer from some very lackluster supporting cast, and I think overall the acting is better in What About Bob?
All right. Andrew?
I'm going to give it to What About Bob, but it's mostly because of the Ma and Pa shop and those two old people that just...
the Guttermans, I forgot to mention them.
The Guttermans, and they keep telling the doctor to, screw you, you're going to hell.
It's always the wife. And it's always the wife. And he's like, she never says that.
And when they're watching Good Morning America, and he's like, all right, Bobby.
That might be my favorite plot device of both of these movies. How is he going to get over to the house? Gutterman's going to take him. Got it.
God, how did we forget about them? That's awful of us. Gabe.
Yeah, I think Richard Dreyfuss really played a great. You could psychoanalyze him. He played a really great narcissist, and I really like Bill Murray. I think he had a good performance. So I have to go with What About Bob?
All right. The Great Outdoors was the debut feature film of Annette Bening. Can you believe that?
Really? What? She did not have a very big or interesting part.
Right.
Yeah.
She was just there to talk about the spin cycle.
Have you ever seen White or White?
Robin Williams was the first choice for the role of Bob Wiley.
Mm.
Then it went to Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin.
No. Yes.
Murphy.
Director Frank Oz, which, by the way, this is our second Frank Oz movie, correct, of the year?
Right. Little Shop of Horrors. Right?
He originally wanted Patrick Stewart to play Dr. Leo Marvin.
Oh, that'd have been great.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, he would have been fantastic. Yeah.
The role was
I liked Richard Dreyfuss in that character, but
the role was also offered to James Caan, Chevy Chase,
that would have been different. That would have been way different.
And Kevin Kline. I think Kevin Kline would be the closest to Richard Dreyfuss.
It'd be good. I think if you put Chevy Chase in that role, it becomes much more like Great Outdoors.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think what made that work was that it was more of a actual serious actor with what people knew of a kind of a goofier actor.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. But originally, when I read the director Frank Oz wanted Patrick Stewart when I was doing the trivia, I was like, really? Patrick Swayze? That's crazy. I'm going to put that in there. Like, I totally read that wrong. I'm like, Patrick Swayze, really? Okay.
I can totally see Patrick Stewart doing Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Make it so. All right, but in the overall category, I just want to let you guys know I do have a lot of trivia about the drama on set for What About Bob, and there is a lot of drama.
Interesting.
Really?
What?
Yes.
Is that going to happen during
overall
section?
Yeah, I had to cram it all into that. So let's move on. Let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
The directors of both these movies do different jobs, despite sharing the same title. And What About Bob? It's more a crafted linear narrative story, where one character's arc is changing one direction, one character's arc is changing the other direction, and lots of ancillary fun and gags going on. Charming characters, interesting locations. It's pretty shot at a lake. It's very pretty. Both movies do an all right job at capturing, like the beauty of being on vacation and the relaxation of being on vacation. They set that tone of an unwanted intruder coming into your vacation and throwing all your plans up in the air. The director in Great Outdoors is more guiding the story loosely from one sketch or skit to the next. And I think the weakness in the structure really shows at the end, where it does pay off in a gag with the bear. And there are some funny moments in that ending, but it seems so disjointed. And then when you really think about it, there's not a lot of character progression or change. It's a lot of different scenes of how a good-hearted family man can, make some comedy out of being a straight man, and his obnoxious brother-in-law. And there is some family drama and things like that, and young love and all these things. But I don't know that they form a very strong backbone, like a through line for the movie. So I think the jobs of the directors were very different. And maybe we can talk in overall, too, a little about editing. I think maybe we talk about it in directing as well. The editing seemed a little tighter in What About Bob? And it was just a little less, I don't know. It wasn't as noticeably good in The Great Outdoors. But the comedic timing in both movies is really good. They do a good job capturing those moments, and I think they get the right takes for the most part. Great Outdoors feels a little bit looser. I think both are fairly well-directed movies, but I don't think in any way they reach like any kind of award-winning status or anything above like serviceable directing. I don't think they're doing anything new or innovative. But I mean, they're both competently directed, but they're done in very different ways.
Well said.
And that's it. That's all we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like, Kyle, you mentioned the editing. And I felt like the editing in The Great Outdoors was a little bit rough. There were times where it was just kind of like a jump cut to the next thing. It's like they didn't know how to end a scene and how to transition between the scenes and that kind of thing. And it felt kind of rough at times. And I also felt like the cinematography was definitely not as nice. There were times in What About Bob where I'm like, oh, that's a nice shot. That's a beautiful shot. The color is good, the composition is good. That's a good shot. Whereas a lot of times in The Great Outdoors, I'm like, okay, that's a little bit too close, or it's just not a well composed shot. It's functional, it gets the job done, but it's not really well thought out.
Well, and you could, just real quick, you could tell what they did in the studio. Right? Like when Dan Aykroyd's putting the skis up against the house, that's definitely studio.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
lighting,
it looks very different.
Yes,
it
the
looks very
lighting's
different
way
from the
off.
rest of the movie. Yeah.
And then the Leeches, when they get up in the morning and the Leeches and everything, I mean, that is studio. Because that's a backdrop hanging behind.
That's very
them.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm not sure how important that is in a film like that. I don't think you go to a film like that to admire the cinematography.
No.
That's not really what it's about. But I think there's still kind of a minimum level of kind of like competency. Like if you went to that and the cinematography was pretty good as well, you'd be like, oh, not bad. That was pretty good. And you may do that subconsciously. You may not think, like, oh, it was a good movie, but the cinematography wasn't that great. Most people don't even really think about that. But I think there's a subconscious component to it. And it just felt kind of like hurried and, just not as well thought out as What About Bob. Whereas What About Bob was, I thought it was, the color was good, the composition was good, the focus was true all the time. I just felt like it was a little bit better. It was a little bit better than suitable. So, it wasn't outstanding by any means, but it was decent. And the editing was smoother and made more sense. The transitions between scenes made more sense. That kind of thing. So I just felt like What About Bob was a little bit more professional, a little bit tighter in that respect.
Well, one of the things I noted, I mean, strictly with cinematography, that the shots that they did, the transition to show the night went to morning, they showed the shot over the lake with the fog, and I'm pretty sure it's the same shot every single time they show that.
Yeah, it could
in
be.
The Great Outdoors. It's really odd. But again, I would agree. I would definitely say that during, when both these movies came out, especially, at the age that probably most of us were, minus Kyle, because I'm not sure he was allowed to go to a movie at the time. But we sat and we watched these movies and we laughed, and it was goofy. And I guess the focus on actual what was good or bad or anything didn't really cross, because we were just enjoying what was being shown to us in the situations they were in. So I kind of agree to both aspects, because now it's like we analyze things way differently. And I mean, that's how it is. But Yeah, I would definitely, I would agree with that it's more coherent and more strict when it comes to actually being a real long story for What About Bob, where you're actually telling a story. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It just seemed more kind of thought out.
Yeah.
More coherent throughout.
Well, and maybe your comments that, you said it almost felt more put together, more professional, is maybe the best way to put. I mean, it felt more like a real movie as opposed to, I think, what we've said multiple times, kind of that sketchy where it's like, here's this scene, here's this scene, here's this scene, and it was just kind of put together. And maybe that was intended. I don't want to take away if that was the intention, but it's definitely obvious. At least now it is much more.
Yeah, I was wondering too while you were saying that. I was wondering, like how much does like the budget impact that? In who you can hire and how much you can spend and how much time you can spend on these things. And it looks like the estimated budget for Great Outdoors was $24 million, and What About Bob was $35.
Which,
so I don't know. Does $11 million make a big difference in filmmaking terms? I don't know.
But I mean,
it does.
That's big budget back then too. I mean, that's a pretty good number at that time. I don't know. Like I said, maybe the direction was in The Great Outdoors to really pull off the situational moments, and that was the focus instead of trying to tell a pure, straight, linear story. So, because it definitely comes across.
And I mean, I think maybe this is reaching, but here's something for you. With Vacations, you kind of remember those little snippets, right? You don't remember much of the in between, but you remember those moments. So whenever you do go on a vacation,
but again,
this
this
is me maybe making, putting the cart in front of the horse, but is it supposed to be like that? Is that how he wrote it? Is that is that how we all remember our stuff? Remember our vacations, or when we're working on a project, or what have you? Is we remember these vignettes, right?
And that goes back to the writing when we first said, were these John Hughes little snippets? Were these memories that he had, and he kind of just put them all together and made it work?
But we've seen him do this before. I mean, National Lampoon's Vacation is the same basic thing, but at least there's this, through line, and Christy Brinkley popping up here and there. It just seems it just flows a lot better. So
it seems like they're more connected.
Did it have anything to do with the actors though too? Was it one of those where it's like, oh, we got it, let's move on, that was good, we can't do it funnier? I don't want to take away from your stuff. We're not going to go into it right now.
No.
I was leading, but
I don't think you're trying to take it away. But from the sound of it, there wasn't a lot of drama. Excuse the pun, on The Great Outdoors. It was kind of two guys that had worked together on multiple films. Hey, we're doing this crazy thing. Let's go have fun, right?
And maybe that's.
Which is okay, and maybe, that can translate into some fun stuff. But.
Right, and this is fun stuff. I will still watch The Great Outdoors any chance. If it's on TV, I'm going to sit down and watch it. And same with What About Bob. But I totally agree with you that they are vignettes. But I think from the trivia that I had found, and I had not put it in my notes, was there were a lot of like deleted scenes from The Great Outdoors that were in the trailer and did not show up in the film.
Interesting.
Can't do that. That makes people mad.
Right. But now they kind of do that to help keep the film surprising when you go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
right?
I hate watching a trailer and you see all the funny stuff, and then you go watch the movie and you're like, oh, I've already seen all this.
Even the funny, I mean, not even the funny stuff, but just like plot points, right? Like
Right,
you're
right.
not even surprised when you watch it.
Right.
But I want to go through the director's catalog here with what they've directed. Howard Deutsch. Do you say it Deutsch or Dutch?
Deutsch, maybe.
Deutsch? Howard Deutsch? Okay, let's go with that. Did a Billy Joel, Billy Idol music videos. Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful, The Great Outdoors, Tales from the Crypt, Article 99, Melrose Place, Getting Even with Dad, Grumpier Old Men. So, okay, here we go. Comedy sequel. The Odd Couple 2, comedy sequel. Caroline in the City, The Replacements, Watching Ellie Gleason, The Whole 10 Yards, comedy sequel. My Best Friend's Girl, Life Unexpected, Big Love, Hung, Jane by Design, Ringer, Harry's Law, Emily Owens, CSI New York, Warehouse 13, True Blood, American Horror Story, Getting On, The Lizzie Borden Chronicles, The Strain, Jane the Virgin, CSI Cyber. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Outcast, Claws, Young Sheldon, Empire, Proven Innocent, and right now something in pre-production which is called Swing, and announced The Miller Boys. So he is still working, and it looks like he has gone to TV, which is fine.
A lot of TV.
A lot of TV.
Yeah.
But some of those are really like from that list. I mean, I could pick out 3 or 4 of at least the TV and even a couple of the movies that they're good movies. Like he did a really fabulous job.
Right.
Like American Horror Story is phenomenally shot.
Well, 3 episodes he did. True Blood was 5 episodes. Yeah. So I was just, The Replacements is one of those movies like The Core that if it's on, I have to watch it. I can't help it. I like that movie. The Odd Couple 2, which was kind of weird. And then I was like, oh, Grumpy Old Men. Yeah, I'll go ahead and recommend that. No, it's Grumpier Old Men, which is still funny, but it's not nearly as good as Grumpy Old Men. And then I saw one of my favorite Matthew Perry, I guess if you were to say that you're a Matthew Perry fan, I love The Whole 9 Yards. And then I saw The Whole 10 Yards. I'm like, wait, wasn't The Whole 9 Yards that I like? The Whole 10 Yards is the sequel, which is not as good. But in my trivia, and I'll just go ahead and say it right now, The Great Outdoors was the 3rd and final film written by John Hughes and directed by Howard Deutsch? Is that how it was? The earlier 2 movies were, as I said, Pretty in Pink and Some Kind of Wonderful. Which Pretty in Pink, ask any girl or any woman now what some of their favorite movies were back when they were growing up. Pretty in Pink is going to be one of them. And then, of course, you get to Frank Oz, which is Dark Crystal, Muppets Take Manhattan. I believe we've already talked about this. Little Shop of Horrors, of course, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. What About Bob, House Sitter, The Indian in the Cupboard, In and Out, Bowfinger, The Score, The Funkhausers, The Stepford Wives, Death at a Funeral, Leverage. He did an episode of Leverage, and Muppet Guys Talking, which was a documentary. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I did notice that Howard Deutsch he did transition to TV fairly quickly. But it seems like he's had a long and successful career.
I wish I could have a career like that. I mean, look at how many hit TV shows he was on.
Yeah,
and still
Tales
on.
from the Crypt. I mean, whew,
yeah,
that's a great one. I mean,
yeah, and the kind of styles or the genres are very different too. Because we think about something like The Great Outdoors or Pretty in Pink or those kinds of things. Those kinds of those TV shows are very different, very dark and very
American Horror Story versus Young Sheldon. I mean,
well, that too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking totally different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was reading that list, before I started talking about it. I'm like, okay, so my wife loves or watches Young Sheldon, and she loves Jane the Virgin. So I just found it funny. I'll shut up now. All right. Do you guys want to add anything else to directing? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's put it to a vote then. Let's go with Kyle there.
I'm becoming sad because I know the score is not looking good for The Great Outdoors.
It doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
No, I know. Yeah, what about Bob?
Andrew?
Again, it's hard. It's really hard because it feels like, especially based on all the stuff that you just talked about with Mr. Deutsch, that it seems like that Great Outdoors was made to basically be the way that it is with the short little pieces. But I'm going to have to go with What About Bob? It just feels maybe more professional, as it was said earlier.
Gabe?
Yeah, I think that Frank Oz is a pretty competent director, and What About Bob is much more finely crafted. So I have to go with What About Bob.
Finely crafted. Yeah.
Tom.
I'm not going to talk in circles. I'm voting for What About Bob because it's the better movie.
All right. Well, we are definitely not going to be giving Dick Tracy the win on this. Where'd it go? All right. Woody Allen and Gary Marshall were considered to direct prior to Frank Oz being hired for What About Bob?
What?
That's crazy. Thank God Woody Allen wasn't. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
But these pretzels are making me thirsty.
That's great. All right, and I already talked about my Great Outdoors trivia, so let's move on to our fourth and final round overall.
This is really hard now because we have hit so many popular things about this movie, both of these movies already, and really, I think even psychoanalyzed one. Wow. Somebody getting more scotch there, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't mute my mic. I can only turn down my volume as low as I can, and apparently it all comes through. But yes, I am pouring me.
Do you mind sharing, Mike?
Yeah, sure. I'll pour it on my microphone.
Yeah, can you IM me some scotch?
Here, I'll try and screen share it, so we can all trip again.
Yeah. We'll do another psychedelic trip before the end of the episode.
You can't mute because you've had too much scotch. You can't figure out where the button is.
I'm good. What are you talking about?
No.
I mean, overall, we have hit, like I said, we've psychoanalyzed both What About Bob. We have dug deep into The Great Outdoors. Overall, these are the things, I guess, that would be left unsaid because we don't really need to rehash unless somebody brings something up that I didn't think of or is amazing or someone else thinks of. But What About Bob, when it first came out, it was probably one of my very first delinquent things because I remember going into the theater, watching What About Bob, and then my friend Bob, who I was seeing the movie with, we loved this movie. I'm serious. One of my friends in high school's name was Bob. We would go to this movie, but we would go to the movie and we would sneak down to one of the little tiny corridors and we would hide there until the next playing of What About Bob would start again, and we would sneak it. We watched it one day 6 times in a row in the theater and enjoyed every single time we watched it. So that was the first time I watched it was 6 times in one day. So I really, really enjoyed What About Bob. The Great Outdoors, the very first time I saw it was on VHS. Popped it into the player, was like, John Candy, Dan Aykroyd, I know who these people are. should be funny. Enjoyed it, and it has great fun memories, because I always think of, why aren't my vacations like this? Like, I always thought that my family vacations needed to be much more energetic, more crazy like this. Why were we not going to a cabin and having all these weird, crazy hoot and hollers? And, even as I got older, I'm like, man, how come I can't pick up a local chick? Look how easy this was. This come on now. So I have fond memories of both. Both movies are still very much enjoyable. I laugh at all of them, and even watching them again this time, I laughed, and I think that says something for the time. These are older movies, but technically still hold up, I guess, in the sense that I enjoyed watching them. It wasn't like, oh boy, I can't believe I thought this was funny at one point. They were great, and I mean, even the corniness of The Great Outdoors with like the raccoons, which I still laugh at and still think it's hilarious that there's a Geico commercial from the raccoons from this movie, which is a huge throwback in pop culture. That's my lead. Like I said, if somebody else has something big to bring, we have talked so much about it. I don't want to kill something, but yeah, I love them both. They're childhood fond memories.
What about music?
Oh, do we want to talk about music? Okay. Well, I would definitely say that the music for me was definitely the most memorable in Great Outdoors. There were, the opening scene, I think, Kyle, I think you were the one that said something.
The Yakety Sack song?
The Yakety Yak.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. And what's funny is every time I hear that song, I think of The Great Outdoors. Like, it's somehow like been connected in my brain, and those neurons will never let go. So I would definitely say that that's more of a memorable, as to, What About Bob? It had a soundtrack. I don't know. There's nothing that directly stood out. It's not probably one that I'm like, oh, I'm going to play that on my iPod or, whatever. But, I don't know. That's, I guess, my music take. Sorry. I wasn't really thinking about music just because it's so, and What About Bob is like, maybe somebody else has something else to say about music though.
I'd like to say that, like, when I listen to Great Outdoors, I can hear like what Thomas Newman wants to do with his career, but it's just not there. It's just like, his kind of, fun and fancy piano that he likes to do, and the, the darkness of it. He does not, it's just not there. And at this time, in '88, if anybody wanted to score like that, they'd hire Danny Elfman. So.
It reminds me of Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he goes in and he's like, "Oh, dark and ominous."
Yeah, I'm not sure that I felt like there was any of the music was particularly outstanding. It was suitable. It worked, but I didn't feel like it really stood out to me.
Yeah. It just we talked about we talked about everything so much. I just What About Bob just feels like a more complete movie.
If there wasn't music, I would notice.
That's true.
I will say that as far as enjoyability goes, to me, The Great Outdoors was a more enjoyable movie just because it has so many memorable moments, and maybe that's because I'm much more familiar with it as well. This is my first viewing of What About Bob, and it's probably a movie I would watch again. I thought it was funny, but Great Outdoors is just burned into my brain, and I don't really get tired of watching it. I think it's still funny. The jokes still hold up, and I like it.
No, I totally agreed. Like, just the name of the boat, Suck My Wake.
Yeah. If you meet any friends, bring them over. We'll give them a ride and suck my wake.
And blow it out your ass. I don't want anyone else blowing anything else out their ass.
I like to blow Uncle Roman out of my ass.
Yes.
That's what
there's just so many quotable lines from The Great Outdoors, right? And there's so many memorable moments because it is, like we said, little vignettes. So it's easier to remember. Where, what about Bob? Like I said, I always forget about the whole, oh, there's a book out there by someone. Oh, yes, right here. Like, literally almost on the floor laughing because it was just great. I always forget about that. But another great scene from that is, you think he's gone? He's not gone.
Oh, he opens the door. Yes. That's a great gag.
It is just like Dreyfus. Oh my God! It just him and Bill Murray is just I'm sailing.
Oh my God!
and we forgot about the restaurant owners. What were their names again? I'll look it up.
Guttermans.
Yeah, the Guttermans. Like just great. Like little. They keep doing the callbacks to them. They're always out in their boat watching, or they're watching the TV. Like they're part of the reason why Richard Dreyfuss goes crazy. Like they have a hand in that.
Burn in hell.
They need to move on with their lives. It's not healthy for them.
Right.
Yeah, they need counseling too.
But
Richard Dreyfuss is beset by maniacs in this movie.
Yes, and he's the one that goes crazy. I love the fact. Why don't you go on vacation? I am on vacation. He can
the end of the
freak
movie
out
is
like
really,
no one else.
Well, and
it's really sad because Bob's and his family now forever.
Right, he's married to his sister.
That's a really downer ending.
Well, and then
It really depends on who you're cheering for.
Right.
Well, yeah, but you're cheering for the crazy guy? Okay.
Well, and the one scene where the kids, where Bob is doing the Tourette's and they're yelling, and he comes in, he tells them quiet down, and he goes, I just want to get some sleep. And Bob's like, would you like some Valium? I've heard that Valium. I've got some Valium if you'd like some.
No, I don't want any Valium.
And then he's like, I just want some peace and quiet. And he goes, well, I can be quiet. And his son's like, I guess I'll be peace.
Yeah.
That's a great.
That was kind of funny. That was a little.
I mean,
And also when Richard Dreyfuss is talking to himself after he straps the dynamite to him, like, let's see, tomorrow night we'll eat Gil, and the next night we'll eat Bob. No, that's too far.
No.
Far, yeah.
But even Gil being around his neck, I mean, that is just, it's so like, and he goes to the diner, he's like, I need a bowl. He's been in for 8 hours. He's screaming.
Baby steps to 4 o'clock. Baby steps to 4 o'clock. And oh my God! And let's not forget. Oh God, what's Dan Aykroyd's name in the movie? That Roman is one crooked son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch. You may think I'm made of nails and armor, man,
but that hurt me.
You cut me, I bleed.
Yeah,
that cut me, and it hurt.
Also, let's introduce Mr. Thick Dick to Mr. Urinal Cake.
Yeah.
Well, he's got the hair. My thing I love is I want Bob's shirt that says "Don't hassle me, I'm local." That's a great shirt. I want that shirt.
Well, and what you're saying is Uncle Roman and Aunt Kate are being buttheads. Yes.
Are we still gonna get Christmas presents from Uncle Kate?
And being the total nerd, I noticed that, let's see, not Buck, but Ben actually had a transformer that he was messing with at the end of the film.
On the couch.
Yes, on the couch. That was Six Shot. He was a six changer. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I remember watching this and being like, I want that.
I want that.
As a kid, yeah.
Because it was the six changer. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
But, so
and then when he's sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was getting excited because he's eating the old 96er and he finishes it and he's like, well, looks like he's done. He goes, you got to eat it all. And he goes,
that ain't the last bite.
It's just gristle.
I love how John Candy walks
like,
out.
No. You can do it. You can do it. That whole scene.
I love when he walks out of the restaurant and got like the t-shirt like draped on him and he's just kind of out of it. That's how I felt on our honeymoon after I went to my first Brazilian steakhouse.
And then he gets back to the cabin and you see everybody come in and then he runs and goes to the bathroom and everyone follows and you can see Dan Aykroyd. And I think he's counting, but in the shot, and then everybody turns around and runs back out. Oh
yeah, because the raccoons had gotten back in the garbage.
Yeah.
Look at all the maggots on that.
A goof in the movie. You're not supposed to see Dan Aykroyd counting.
Yep. So
and the bear jumping on John Candy through the door.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So
was that, I wanted to know. That's the trivia I want to know.
My memory of watching these films, like I saw What About Bob, I believe. I think it was with some extended family, but Great Outdoors in downtown Des Moines, they had a second run theater for a while. And it was $1 to get in. My dad and I went to see The Great Outdoors. And I had seen numerous films with my dad. But when that bear gets shot and the fur blows off of his ass, my dad was literally on the floor. He was laughing so hard. I have never seen my dad react like that to a film, like ever. He was literally on the ground laughing, and I had to help him up because he just totally lost it. And that's why The Great Outdoors means a lot to me, because I have never seen this man ever react to a film like that before, ever. And there he is on the ground laughing hysterically when the bear's fur gets blown off, right? And you see his ass
through the light bulb,
right?
Don't mind you.
And I just
remember,
lamp. Yeah, but it's loaded. Lamp. I remember my dad just quoting that for months afterwards. Like, it's a lamp, yeah, but it's loaded. Like
the end gag there too, though, which is so weird, is that he has to plug it in order for it to work because he's holding it, but he plugs it in and then it's a shotgun. Yes. What a bizarre choice, but really funny, but so strange.
Oh my God, big bear chase,
big bear chase me.
But yeah, Andrew, you're right. Like I was watching it now, with a discerning eye. I'm like, they did a really good job at making that look like it was John Candy under there, right?
Yeah.
Like this huge bear, like that bear is enormous.
Yes.
And it looked like John Candy was actually under that bear.
And the bear acting.
No, it had to have been like a dummy.
Well,
it was probably
it moves, or whoever the person moves.
There's I felt like they were swinging their arms and stuff.
Yeah, I was looking for it being a dummy. I think it was a real person.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
I think it's probably the bear's trainer, because there's a person who doubles John Candy in those scenes who has a distinct shape. And I think he's in all of those scenes with the bear. He's smaller than John Candy, and you kind of see him running from the bear, interacting with the bear. So yeah,
because
it's like a trainer double.
And I guess that's the only thing we didn't talk about in acting: the bear.
Bear was right.
Well, I mean, come on, to have a trained bear on set with all those actors. That
was Bart the bear, though. Man, he was in everything.
Yeah,
he's in Legends of the Fall and other things.
And for John Candy to pull him up through the well.
Yes. But in this, he played a she, because in the end credit, the after credits, when the raccoons were talking, they're like, "Did you hear about?" Oh gosh, I can't remember the name that they gave her. Yeah, she's bald headed on both ends now. Oh my goodness!
And I would say, in our overall, I think that's what makes these movies so great for all of us, and hopefully for people that are listening and that have seen these movies too, is that we have such fond memories of when we saw them. And I'm going to say to both of these movies, when we saw them, who we were with, the jokes that we told afterwards. Again, we started this episode with roses are red, violets are blue. I'm a schizophrenic, and so am I. And I've used that myself because it's funny, and it's great to know that that's where I say that I feel that these movies really stood the test of time with that comedy, because it's stuff that we're quoting still today, and we have such great fondness for these movies. It's just it's very few to find good movies, in a sense, good movies, comedies that are so impressionable, I would say, on us as younger, that we are just, it's a great movie because it's funny. It's not a great movie because it's going to win an Oscar, but I will watch this movie 100 times. That to me, that's what this is about. That's what filmmaking is about. Regardless of all your goofs and your, mistakes and the practicals, they made movies that made us, go, wow, that was awesome and hilarious, and wow,
Or you're flipping through channels and you're like, oh, I'm watching this.
Yeah.
Right.
You're vacuuming and you're flipping and TBS has it on. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I'm not vacuuming anymore because I got to watch this. So that to me is what makes an overall movie that big.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty cool.
Agreed. Well said. All right, let's put it to a vote. We will start with Andrew.
Dick Tracy.
Okay, that's 2 for Dick Tracy.
I'm sure I can.
Oh, I hope Dick Tracy comes in second.
It might.
Actually, right now it is.
Uh-oh. I might change that.
It's really, again, going back, it's really hard to pick one of these because they're such great, fun movies that I've enjoyed throughout my years. I'm going to lean, due to the fact that I think I quote it more, I'm going to lean to What About Bob?
All right. Gabe?
Well, I feel like, for me anyway, I feel like What About Bob is a better movie, but The Great Outdoors is more memorable and kind of more, in some ways, more enjoyable. So I'm going to go with Great Outdoors.
All right.
Ooh.
Tom?
We talked repeatability. I'll watch What About Bob more often than I will Great Outdoors. Didn't mean to bring this up, but I'm not an outdoorsy kind of guy, and so what about? Surprise. So What About Bob? I like a little bit more because it's more on the story and less on the outdoorsy, woodsy ticks and mosquito stuff.
Leeches.
They're
Leeches.
outside.
Right.
They're outside a lot. And What About Bob?
Yeah, but it's not like the things they do in Great Outdoors. I'm just like, yeah, that would not be fun for me.
Kyle?
Getting up at 6 a.m. after eating 8 pounds of steak and going fishing in a boat. That just doesn't sound like fun.
I am going to go with the Gabriel Rowold school of voting here. I echo his sentiments exactly. I think What About Bob may be technically a better film, but Great Outdoors is more enjoyable to me and more memorable. So I'm voting for The Great Outdoors.
All right.
Oh, clinching.
All right. Here comes the drama.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Richard Dreyfuss, in an article published on 8th October of 2009 by Nathan Rabin of the AV Club, said, quote, "How about it? Funny movie. Terribly unpleasant experience. We didn't get along, me and Bill Murray, but I've got to give it to him. I don't like him, but he makes me laugh even now. I'm also jealous that he's a better golfer than I am. It's a funny movie." Unquote. Richard Dreyfuss. Bill Murray said of this film, according to Entertainment Weekly on March 19th of 93, quote, "It's entertaining. Everybody knows somebody like the Bob guy. Richard Dreyfuss and I didn't get along on the movie particularly, but it worked for the movie. I mean, I drove him nuts, and he encouraged me to drive him nuts," end quote. So they did not like each other. And this is pretty common with Bill Murray and some of his co-stars. I know that in Caddyshack, Chevy Chase and him hated each other.
Yeah, but
nobody gets along with Chevy Chase.
Yeah, everybody hates Chevy Chase.
I understand that, but also there's something else in What About Bob, about a time that he was dealing with our aforementioned screenwriter. Let's see if I can find it. Producer Laura Ziskin recalled having a disagreement with Bill Murray, which led to her getting tossed into a lake by him. She confirmed in 2003, quote, Bill Murray also threatened to throw me across a parking lot and then broke my sunglasses and threw them across the parking lot. I was furious and outraged at the time, but having produced a dozen movies, I can safely say it is not common behavior, end quote.
Huh.
And then there's also a quote in here from Frank Oz that's, let's see, where is it? It's, here we go. In a 2000 interview with IGN director Frank Oz recalled that, quote, it was a tense time shooting the film because Bill Murray and the writer and the producer and Richard Dreyfuss and me and Disney, although less so Disney, I must say that they were more supportive, all had our view on how to make the script better. It wasn't out of mean-spiritedness. It was just that everybody felt strongly about how to make the movie better. That caused friction and a lot of tension, and that's what I remember. But it also caused the movie to be better. It turned out okay, I think, end quote.
So there was a lot of creative differences on set, sounds like.
There was a lot of creative differences. Now, something that is actually somewhat relevant from 2015, Richard Dreyfuss sues Walt Disney Pictures over the Pictures Profit Participation auditing.
So he must have thought they made more money than they did, and he didn't get his share.
Right, like he's not getting his royalty checks. Right. There is. You can look it all up. It was printed by the Hollywood Reporter. Richard Dreyfuss sues Disney over What About Bob. The star filed suit against the studio because, according to a complaint filed on Thursday, Disney has refused a demand by Dreyfuss to hire their chosen auditor. So,
yeah. So I know in some cases where people have what they call points on the movie, where you get a percentage of the profits.
Yes.
A lot of theaters have creative or movie places. Jesus, studios have creative accounting practices that will reduce the amount that gets paid out to actors. Sometimes they have to hire auditors to go to arbitration to get those things sorted out because one party thinks they've made less or more than the other.
That's right.
In order to hide paying that money.
And this
Harry Potter.
It just really surprised me, considering what we have talked about, and I was feeling the exact same way. It's such a fun film to watch, and there was all this drama behind it. So I wanted to share that with you guys and our listeners.
So it was real, the craziness. Maybe that's what made the movie more believable.
Right.
Was Bill Murray being method?
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, if any of you have watched the Man on the Moon documentary on Netflix with Jim Carrey, he went method. He went totally into being
Andy Kaufman.
Yeah, Andy Kaufman. Thank you. And it drove his co-stars, his producers, director, everyone. It drove them nuts.
Yeah, because
kind of a Jared Leto thing.
Exactly.
He refused to be called Jim on set. They had to call him Andy no matter what.
Correct. Yeah. So, and that also comes in where madness breeds genius, right? So you could go either way on that.
But Daniel Day-Lewis would do the same thing. He would get into a character and be, like when he did Lincoln, he would refuse to answer to Daniel. Like he insisted everyone had to call him Mr. President while he was shooting that movie.
Right.
So, I mean, there are other actors that get so method into their roles that they completely, for the time of shooting and potentially before and maybe even after, they completely absorb everything about that character and that movie that they're doing, that nothing else matters. And it may be a good thing, and sometimes it sounds like in this case maybe I don't know, could be a bad thing offset, but on set for everybody else it turned out good.
Right. And interesting. I've asked my wife to call me Mr. President. She says that she prefers using the French term fuckhead. So,
being a Marilyn Monroe fan, I would think she would gladly call you Mr. President.
Happy
on your birthday.
To you.
No, I mean the French kind of rolls off the tongue.
Birthday.
Oh, jeez. It's rumored that JFK never had a sexual encounter with Marilyn Monroe that lasted more than 2 minutes. So, hey! There you go.
All right, boys.
He's a busy man. Got shit to do.
I got math to do, so let's move on to our recommendations.
Go.
Let's start it out with Gabe.
Oh boy. I have to say, when I started watching these, I couldn't remember if I'd seen either. Now, you guys talk about seeing them many times, but I couldn't remember. Then I got partway through Great Outdoors, and I'm like, oh yeah, I totally remember this. But I don't think I had seen What About Bob? And, I was trying to think, like, well, what movies did I see in that time period? Like, what other movies in that kind of category were memorable to me? What things would I watch again, and which things kind of had an impact on my childhood? And the movie Spies Like Us,
yes,
has been on HBO or something recently. I saw part of it recently, and it's actually still pretty funny.
Doctor,
I still enjoyed it. Yes, that's one of the most famous things. I just made a reference to that the other day. I don't know what we were talking about, but it totally made me think of that scene. Doctor. It's like, it's so dumb, but so funny.
That's my
and it
gag.
goes on forever.
That's my gag on set. Is whenever someone walks, I'm like, Doctor. And people return it back, Doctor.
Right.
Doctor.
We do it at work.
Yes.
We'll come in the morning and be like, Doctor.
Yeah. There's just so many fun things in it, like where they go around in the centrifuge thing and they come out and their hair is all sticking up and their faces are still kind of messed up and they're like, you want some coffee or whatever, it's kind of dumb. It's kind of the same like comedy vignette kind of thing, but I just really find it highly enjoyable. So if you've never seen it or if you haven't seen it in a while, check out Spies Like Us.
Good pick. All right, let's move it. Let's move it on to Tom.
So my recommendation is we've referred to this movie a couple times, not by name, but What Would Happen if Bill Murray was just a little bit crazier? So I'm going to recommend the 1991 Martin Scorsese film Cape Fear, which is basically What About Bob?
Oh my God, it is.
I mean, it's really close to What About Bob? In fact, it would have made a really fun matchup. But so anyway, they're sailing in it. It's like a houseboat going down a river, but same thing kind of thing. And it's the Genesis, one of my favorite Simpson episodes as well. So it's weird and creepy and just like What About Bob? So if you like What About Bob, you should check out Cape Fear because it's like the same movie.
It's that darker version that
it's slightly darker. Just it's
where it could have gone.
It's a darker shade.
All right, Kyle.
It's hard to think of can you think of a lot of happy-go-lucky, fun comedy vacation films? where someone wacky comes along and just throws all your plans up in the air. And I was kind of struggling with that, but then I thought about this movie I saw in 2000. I think it was made in 2007. It's called Funny Games, and it's just a really clever, cute little story about a family on vacation who were visited by some unexpected visitors, and all sorts of shenanigans happen. And it's a real light, easy watch. Show your kids. It'd be great.
Right. Yeah.
You guys don't like it? It's got golf in it.
Again, this is if what about Bob were a little bit darker?
Yep.
Yeah.
Funny Games is a really dark movie, and I think it's very fascinating that it is a shot-for-shot remake of the same film done by the same guy 10 years before.
Really? I did not know.
The same guy. I didn't realize.
Michael Haneke did Funny Games in 1997, and he shot it in Austria, and I believe it's in German or Dutch. And then he made a shot-for-shot remake for the American cinema in 2007.
Oh, that's got to make production a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
All right.
We should do those. You should do those two.
Yeah, we should.
We should watch
Two
them.
funny. One of them's just
simultaneous.
subtitled. It's the exact same movie. One of them just has subtitles. I vote for the one I didn't have to read.
All right, Andrew.
Well, since I can't pick Spies Like Us, thanks, Gabe.
Oh, sorry. I had another one.
No, it's too late now.
Yep.
So I'll go with another really funny movie that you could kind of consider this being a vacation, because some people might be going on vacation during this film, but it has our Julie Haggerty in it, and that would be Airplane. I think we mentioned it earlier. I would say from Airplane to Naked Gun and that series that the Zucker brothers did, Airplane is probably one of my favorites. Not the second one, but the first one. It's hilarious. The gags are fantastic. They could never, ever be done today. You could never remake Airplane. But
Just like
my
Blazing
goodness.
Saddles.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
There
Which
are
we
so
did,
many
actually. Airplane versus Blazing Saddles.
Oh, see? Well, I'm recommending Airplane because I will watch that again. Another funny movie I'll watch anytime.
Absolutely.
And I still quote things from that movie, and I will never forget when Julie Haggerty is trying to sell Tupperware to all of the natives, because oh my God.
In fact, we had a call or a pre-show. We actually had a quote from that.
Yeah.
It's all over.
In the last couple of weeks, I've had someone tell me they did not like Airplane, and I felt almost physically mad. Like I had like a visceral reaction to it.
Right.
I was like, "What? You don't like air? That's fucking preposterous." It's like someone telling me I don't need to eat to live. Like that's not right. You like
Julie Haggerty blows up
everybody loves
the
Airplane.
autopilot through the
How do you not think
in his
fun?
belt?
Yeah, you can't be friends with everybody, Kyle.
I can't remember who said it, but
Nice.
It was striking because I felt almost like this. I'd never hit somebody for an opinion like that, but for a minute I was like, "Oh, you're wrong. Your opinions are bad." It made me mad for a minute.
Well, is it anybody that we know? Because we're gonna have to blackball him.
I don't think so. I can't remember who it was. I'll try to search my memory.
All right.
But man,
They are out.
this is a fucking great movie.
It is.
Sometimes people are just wrong.
So, Kyle brought up a good point. Like, imagine what John Candy could have done if he wouldn't have had that heart attack on Wagons East.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to bring this up in overall. So real quick, imagine John Candy and Chris Farley working together on films, right?
That's like a father-son.
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it'd be great.
Oh my.
That shit would be great.
Oh,
Just fantastic. So
Put him in Christopher Guest movies
yes.
with Eugene Levy and that whole crew.
Yes.
That'd be great. It'd be so fun.
Oh man. So I was going through the films of all these actors, and I do have fond memories of John Candy. He was a big part of my childhood, and Who's Harry Crumb came up. Armed and Dangerous has come up, and
Splash.
Right, Splash. But there's one that I have fond memories. Just going back to being at one of my grandma's. She had the VHS of this movie. It has Virginia Madsen in it, Dabney Coleman, Bobcat Goldthwait, and John Candy. Except John Candy is doing a voice. And it came out the same year as The Great Outdoors. It's called Hot to Trot.
Hot to Trot.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure if I watched this movie, I would hold my head in my hands, but I loved it. I would watch it over and over and over again when I was at her place. It was directed by Michael Diner. It's Dinner. Diner.
Yeah, that must be Dinner because Diner's only got one end.
And it's horror. Like it has a 4.4 rating. But oh man, it was a big part of my childhood. So if you want to watch a horrible movie where John Candy does the voice of a horse, Bobcat Goldthwait does his thing, and Dabney Coleman is Dabney Coleman, watch Hot to Trot.
Oh, I want to watch that now.
Wow. So do I.
It's been so long.
All right. Let's go ahead and poke the monkey. Find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is... What About Bob?
Let's move on to where people can find you and maybe perhaps show up at your family vacation. Gabe.
Oh, God. Yeah, you could look me up on Facebook, but I really don't go in there anymore. But you can also check out some of our 48-hour films on onegenomeshort.com.
All right. Tom.
Let's see. People can find me on Facebook until I don't know. I'm getting ready to delete it. I'm tired of Facebook, so. And I don't know.
You guys are the reason I have to keep Facebook. I just want to point that out.
Why? Why are we the reason?
Because of Cinesmack, right? It's like Cinesmack, the studio page, and some of the other podcasts that we do. That's the reason I keep Facebook.
See, that's the thing is I get people, clients interacting with me through Facebook, but it's like, I don't know. The people I'm trying to get to are on Instagram now, so I guess
we need to be on Instagram, Mike.
Yeah.
Instagram's just a place where you want to throw out the best parts of your life and leave everything else out.
See, but this podcast is one of the best parts of my life, see?
It is mine as well.
Aww.
I enjoy this every month. I wish it was bi-monthly, actually, but
every 2 months?
Bi-weekly. There we go.
Twice a week?
Yes, twice a week, Kyle.
As much as I love
now Mike is regretting that statement.
I'm totally regretting everything.
Because of Kyle. Kyle's making this difficult.
And then for some reason we started doing it every 3 days. We don't know what happened.
Oh, Jesus.
So, I check
movies a day.
I've actually already started Airplane, so we need to wrap this up. like the opening credits are over. It's
Kyle.
What a fantastic
you can find me at one of my 2 Twitter handles, at Choke Jerkin and at Lips and Assholes. All the L's and I's are ones in that.
All L's and I's?
Yes, so Lips and Assholes. So it'd be
L1.
So all the L's and I's are ones. So it'd be 11PS ASSHO1ES. Find me
3
at
H
Lips and Assholes.
3S.
Yeah. Yeah, lead speak. That and choke jerkin. I also offer pro bono jerk sitter appointments. You can set that up. Hit me up on my app, jerksitter.net. And don't come yourself to death, kids.
Andrew.
Wow. I'm not.
Don't even try to follow that.
Yeah, you can go out to ArizonaInkStudios.com.
Are there?
I'm not sure you want to mention your company after everything.
It's a great product. I wholly endorse it.
But you can find all the social media, all of our films, all of our short films out there. So, whew.
My God. Real quick, I want to toot my own horn. This past year we did a video for the Greater Des Moines Partnership along with Will Keeps. It's a music video. It's called I'm Up. And the Des Moines Partnership won 2 national awards because of that video.
Nice.
Very nice.
So,
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. If you want to watch it, go to YouTube.
I'm clapping.
Kyle, stop it.
Search I'm Up. Will Keeps or Greater Des Moines Partnership. You can find it on there. You can follow me on Facebook because I have to have it for Cinesmack and some of the other stuff we do. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm Southsider Studios on YouTube because we don't have an actual website. And this podcast would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps others like you find us that enjoys our jokes, like jerk sitting or jerk sitting. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For July, we are celebrating our 100th episode. Can you guys believe it? 100 episodes. With 2 movies that have been on the top of our list ever since we made it. And they were sitting up there on the very 2 first ideas I had were these films. It's 2 Spielberg classics, Jaws versus Jurassic Park. For Gabe, Andrew, Kyle, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening and go catch a flick.
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone. Is this some radical new therapy? You see?
Is this a fake hang-up? Sounds like this is a fake hang-up, isn't it?
Wait. Okay, on the count of 3, you're going to hang up?
Okay.
No, you hang up.
No, you hang up.
No, you hang up.
It's a fake hang-up, I'm sure of that. You're just testing me.
I need to use the phone. Would you guys just hang up?
Quit checking your email, Mom.
Oh.
Is this a new type of
A new type of therapy.
Now my porn's only half downloaded. Gotta use my imagination to jerk off.
Kyle, do we need to work in a 5-minute break in the middle of the episode?
There's no need to break. If you guys haven't noticed it happening so far, there's no problem.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.